So LEAP is a point of sale application that digitizes every stage of the in-home sales experience. This includes things like helping you to create documents like surveys and assessments. You can import your measurements to help you generate your estimates really quickly. You can store your sales materials like manufacturer brochures, before and after photos, videos, links, pretty much anything that you would need to present in the home you can store within the LEAP app and present digitally from there. It also helps you to calculate your financing costs and submit applications right while you're on the appointment, as well as creating customized and professional proposals and contracts as well. So now I'd like to introduce you all to our speaker today, Steve Spencel. He is the creator of LEAP and has been actively developing the LEAP application for over 10 years. He comes from a sales background in the home improvement industry, where he started in windows and roofing. He was a sales rep for several years and then realized there was a lot of room for improvement in his process. So then he started developing what is now LEAP. He learned how to code and built a system that was scalable and used it to help him sell more. So there's a lot more to that story, and Steve tells it a lot better than I do. So I'd like to welcome Steve and turn it over to you.
Awesome, thanks, Kelly. So if you make me presenter, I'll share my screen and go through a couple more slides.
Perfect. All right, it should be all yours.
All right, you should be able to see the same screen that you were just on.
Perfect, yep.
All right, so this webinar is going to be kind of casual. Basically, what I like to do is just go you through a couple of things that I used to do as a sales rep that made my life easier. You know, when pitching leads, I used to sell exterior remodeling, so a lot of the stuff that I'm going to demo is going to be geared around exterior remodeling, but you can really use it for anything. We have customers that use this software for obviously exterior remodeling, kitchens, baths, some plumbing companies, we got flooring companies, painting companies. I mean, really any type of home services you could use this software for. So everything that I'm going to talk about here today, although is a lot, you know, geared around exterior remodeling, you can really use it for anything. And then so it's basically just going to be what I'm going to do is go through a couple slides, show you a couple of the tips, you know, things that I'm going to highlight, and then what I'm going to do is switch my screen over to my iPad, and I'm going to give a live demo and just show you some of the things, real world scenarios that I used to do as a sales rep to make my life easier. So the first thing, and kind of the theme of this webinar, is about visuals with your homeowner. So home services is one of the things that when you're selling the project, unlike a lot of other things, most things that, you know, us humans buy, we don't get like an instant gratification. You have to kind of like visualize what it's going to look like. You're not sure how the deck is going to look or how the roof is going to look or the bathroom or whatever it is. You're picking a bunch of stuff out of magazines, you're holding up color swatches, you're looking through brochures and before and after pictures of, you know, maybe previous jobs, and you're trying to get a visual of what it is that you know, the final project is going to look like. And then you usually have to write a deposit check before any work even gets started. A lot of times a draw check, you know, before the work gets started, kind of like maybe when the materials are delivered. And then of course, you know, the end result is done, and then you just hope it turned out the way that you're expecting. So visuals when you're doing your proposal, your presentation, if you do a presentation, visuals are very important, and that's what I used to use to build value in both me, my company, and the product that I was selling. So if you can step your game up in your visuals, then you'll see an increase in closing percentages. You'll see an increase in your dollars per ticket. You know, your customer referral rate, you know, will increase. It's just the overall customer satisfaction, what the customer's perception of your company and your product is just going to be so much higher. One of those things is most companies are going to carry around some brochures of the products that they're selling. They have color samples and whatnot. They might have some a PowerPoint presentation that they talk about of why the customer should buy from them. We used to call these a pitch book, you know, and I used to just tell them, hey, this is my company and this is how we got started. These are all of our accolades with our Better Business Bureau, and you know, here's some letters of recommendation from previous customers, etc. This is all stuff that helps you create value on, you know, to the customer and why they should buy from you. You know, color samples is very important. You probably carry around a bunch of brochures and stuff like that. And if you're using technology, a software like Leap, you can also house like customer testimonial videos. So this was something that before going digital, I used to carry around all of my brochures, and I used to have a binder that had my pitch book in it. And at the end of the pitch book, I had a bunch of just a couple, was like printed out like reviews from like Google. We had a survey tool called Guild Quality where customers will respond to surveys. We picked out a couple of those and put those survey responses in there. And so we made that all digital and we put it into the Leap app. But then because we were digital, I started putting customer testimonial videos. So the company had put I think it was like they ran a thing for like a month or two where any reps that brought back a customer testimonial video where they recorded it on their phone, maybe after a sale or after an installation, about how happy the customer was. They would give the sales rep a $50 bonus. And they got them, I don't know, a dozen or so of these videos over the course of a month or two, and we picked out obviously the best ones and we started putting them into the app, and then I would use those as a tool when I was pitching my next lead. So storing all of this information in Leap is something that's very easy. You go to our dashboard, our website, our backend, and you upload all of your brochures, the manufacturer's brochures, a lot of which we have already downloaded for you. So you just click the manufacturer and have them auto import into your Leap instance, and then you can upload all of your pitch books, PowerPoint presentations, etc. Another one is links to websites. One of the other things that I'm guilty of not using it as much as I should, but the company had put in place another incentive one of the months where you had to replace your lead with another lead, and they had a bonus and stuff tied around that. So if they gave you a lead to go run, you had to replace it with another lead. So to make this easier on reps on how do we get that information, do you write it down on a piece of paper, and that's what reps are doing at first, and they turn that piece of paper in, and what happens? Well, instead, you could put a link to a landing page in your Leap app, and when the rep clicks on it, it could have just a form capture where they could just type in the next lead. Maybe it's a friend or family member of the lead that they're running, and that could have push that then directly back to the home office, whether in a CRM or an email or whatever you may see fit. And I'll show you an example of this once I get into the actual iPad demo. So storing all of your presentation materials is very important. The other one that I use that I don't think is used enough is measurement tools. So in this screenshot, you have EagleView and Hover, and they're pretty popular for exterior modeling. EagleView measures, they're very big in roofing. And then Hover, you can actually use their app to take pictures of the house and they return to you back not only the roof, but they'll give you the siding and the windows and the doors, etc. So this was a tool that most companies, even today, are using post-sale. So they'll wait till the sales rep sells it, and then they're using it more for production, to where they'll order it, and EagleView, let's say, returns back, hey, this is how many square feet or linear feet, square boxes or whatever that you need. It gives you all the measurements so that you can order the materials on the project. However, if you can use that information because they give you a beautiful PDF, both of these do, EagleView and Hover, a beautiful PDF of that customer's house with every single measurement itemized out. And this was something that I used to use as a tool to close more deals. And the reason is because there's always two things, like a little stigma that I would have, and any sales rep has walking to the house, whether they're aware of it or not. In the home improvement industry, there's kind of a stigma of, dishonesty. Even though your company can be the most honest that there is, you always hear about the friend or family member that might have had the issue, or maybe you had it yourself, with the hairy homeowner contractor that took the deposit, or you might have seen something on TV. There's always this kind of like skeptical, like homeowners, not all of them, but a lot of them are just have this little bit of uneasiness about a sales rep in the home improvement industry. And then the other one was not just the sales rep in the home improvement industry, but just sales rep in general. So, salesmen kind of have this stigma of always, just trying to sell what's best for the sales rep and not what's best for the homeowner. So this was something that I was aware of as a sales rep, and I would go to the customer's house. I always wore a nice shirt, either a polo shirt. A lot of times I would wear a tie. And I just make sure I presented myself in a way that just as much as possible could overcome those types of objections. When I would use measurement tools, I would use them into my advantage to help overcome this. The credibility that I would have when I would show the homeowner, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, this is how I came up with the measurements that I'm about to present to you. Or this is how I came up with the price that I'm about to present to you. And I would go through the reports that EagleView and Hover returned back to me and show them their house and their pictures, and how a third party basically marked out all the different eaves and valleys and rakes, and the square feet of this and the linear feet of that. And then the homeowner's like, okay, yeah, I understand that. And then when I would present the price to them, it was calculated by my iPad. And it was a lot easier as a sales rep to kind of blame the sticker shock on the device, my iPad, instead of having to own it. Because back in the day when I first started, when I wasn't using technology, I would have to say, okay, well, please excuse me for a minute. I'm going to work up all the numbers and I'll get back to you in 5 minutes, 5, 10 minutes. And even if, the customer stayed sitting there with me, there's always that awkward 5 to 10 minutes. If the homeowner left the kitchen table for whatever reason to start dinner or give the kids a bath or whatever it may be, my chances of closing the deal right then and there plummet, because now I got to sell one or both parties back to the table. So this was just something that it was a lot easier for me to present the price to the homeowner and have, not really have to take the ownership of the price, because I was blaming the sticker shock of the price on my device. The next thing I wanted to talk about is, after you do your presentation, you have your resources, and you're doing all of your brochures and your pitch book, etc. You come up with a price. How are you presenting that price to the homeowner? And this is very important, because there's contractors out there that are like, hey, I'll get back to you in an email, and they send the customer an email, and it's nothing fancy. It's just a simple email that gets the job done. The next guy, he says, hey, I'll drive by them. I have another lead out here tomorrow. I'll drive by and I'll leave you some paperwork in your mailbox. And maybe he does something very nice. He has a folder that maybe has his company logo on the front of it, and it has his business card in the folder, and he has like some brochures and all this stuff, and it's very professional. Leaves it in the mailbox. Both people kind of like don't get the price to the customer right away, but what is the customer's perception? If you have a guy that does it very professional, with the nice folder, with the brochures, maybe a letter of recommendation from a previous customer, etc., and he takes the time to maybe drop that off to the customer, or puts it together in a beautiful email and sends it to the customer, and then you have the guy that just types it up and says, hey, this is the price, this is the products, blah, 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 here you go, let me know if you want to pull the trigger on it. If all else is equal, the price is equal, the products are equal and everything, which one would the customer go with? And most people are going to say, well, most likely the customer will go with the guy who is much more professional in representing the company. If a guy comes to the house and he smells like alcohol, and he's not dressed nice, he stinks, I don't know, and a guy comes in, he's dressed real nice, he represents himself, and all else are equal, which one does the customer go with? These are all things that just subliminal things that sales reps can do to help separate themselves from the competition. So price presentation is one of those. A lot of times, I'll just tell you, back in the day when I used to do it, we had a sheet of paper that had a bunch of different lines on it, had a company header at the top, and we would handwrite all the numbers. We'd handwrite like an MSRP or a retail. We'd handwrite our discount. Down at the bottom, we'd do the math. We'd write a monthly payment on there, and we would slide that over to the homeowner. And at the time, that was great. Nobody was using technology. As times evolved, if you look at today, that's like old fashioned now. Like, I couldn't imagine doing that now as a sales rep, because I want to present my customer with a digital document instantly that has pictures of their house, markings on the stuff that we're going to do, circles, and X's, so that it's very clear what we are including and what we are not including. The little floor plans, drawing little graphs of where things are going to be located. After pictures, and maybe what it would look like, color swatches of the actual colors or models of products that they are buying are printed on the document. So when they're going through it, it all makes sense. It's not just chicken scratch handwriting on a carbon copy contract. This thing is very professionally put together, presented to the homeowner. So again, it separates you from everybody else. We are at a time right now in the home improvement industry where technology is still new in the home improvement industry. Like every other industry, technology is just maxed out. They've been using technology for everything forever. Home improvements, for a couple reasons, and that's beyond the scope of this webinar, but it's still in its infancy as far as what companies are using technology-wise. Companies who are using technology from top to bottom in their organization are benefiting greatly from doing that, because there's a lot of companies who are just still doing it the old-fashioned way. And then it takes, final thing is talking to contracts, which I touched a little bit on the previous slide, and that is creating visuals on your actual contracts. Just tell you a little story. One time I went and sold a job. It was a $30,000+ siding job, and customer was doing basically the entire exterior of the house minus the roof. And we sold it. I wrote it all up, and I forget the exact color, but let's say it was, I don't know, slate stone gray was the color that they picked for their siding. I wrote slate stone gray on their contract. I wrote all the other colors and everything that was on it. And I was, on my way to another lead. I don't know, a month later, and this job was being installed, and I get a phone call from the homeowner saying, "Hey, this is not the color. They're halfway installed. I just got home from work, and I told them to stop working on the job because that is not the color that I ordered." And I'm like, "Well, what do you mean?" Obviously, me as a sales rep, I'm not there at the customer's house. I'm like, "I know I wrote it down on the contract, right?" But the customer's like, "That's not the color I ordered." I forget what ended up happening with that entire lead, but I just remember, man, I wish there was a way, like maybe I should just left behind a color swatch or whatever. The customer has no idea what slate stone gray means. That could be any shade of gray. Well, if your contracts were able to put the actual color swatch of the product that you're selling on it in full color, then there would really be no discrepancy. I could have just pointed to the contract and said, "Hey, the color that slate stone gray, here is an actual color sample." And in this slide, you see the document there that has, an example of shingles to show the exact color of shingles that this homeowner is buying. So I just thought that was something very important. And obviously, you can do a lot more. You can do the pictures. I talked about marking up the photos, and obviously you can do that on the proposals and the contracts. And when I get into my app, which I believe is the next slide, we'll go ahead and take a look at this. So let me fire up my iPad real quick. I'm going to switch my screen right here. And so I have a couple stuff already preloaded into this app. So this is live. This is connected, directly to my iPad. The little green dot that you see will be my finger touches, so you can see when I'm clicking. I've already preloaded it with a customer and a couple measurement options. So if I go in here, actually let's pull in. I think I have a hover. Let me real quick. Go in here, make sure. Yeah, I do. Okay, so I have some roofing details. I have some window details already preloaded in here. We have a ton of other videos and webinars that we have done showing you how this entire thing works. But for now, I just want to show you some of the visual aids. So I come up with a price with the homeowner. And let's say at some point, obviously, I'm going to do the presentation. I want to show the homeowner, all the different products that they have that we offer, and also how I came up with the price that I'm about to present to them. So let's go into my roofing section, for instance. In this example, I have a bunch of GAF brochures, and I can click into this brochure and I can say, "Okay, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, here's, I don't know, maybe you want to talk about this particular thing." I can zoom in on it. I can scroll over to the next page, and I have all of my brochures, all of my pitch materials handy. This is something like you might not think about it now, but reps are out in the field, especially in the busy season, which for me, exterior modeling was actually right now, October, I think, was our busiest month of the year. And I'm out there, I'm running 2 to 3 leads a day. I'm not getting back to the office every single day. A lot of times when I had a chance to get back to the office, everybody's out of the office and it's locked up. So I would run out of brochures. I'd be on my way to sell a sliding glass door and a couple windows. And it just so happens I'm out of sliding glass door brochures because I only carry so many in my briefcase. So now I'm pitching the lead, I'm pitching sliding glass doors using a window brochure, trying to explain all the differences between a window and a sliding glass door. So this was this was game changing for me when I always had the latest brochures that I needed in pitch materials every single time, no matter what. So even if I forgot my iPad, which has happened, I had my phone and I could pull everything up on my phone and do everything, from my phone. I'd never leave home. Most people don't leave home without their phones. Maybe I wanted to pitch windows. I could scroll through into my windows section and open up the window brochure. We had talked about links to different websites. So in this example, we have a link to our YouTube channel, which if you haven't checked it out, there's a ton of other content on there. We had mentioned earlier about our podcast. There's a ton of podcasts in there. By the way, there's a competition between me and the CEO of the company to get some listens on who has the most listens. Right now I am losing, but I am gaining traction on him. So it's a shameless plug if you guys can go listen to the Steve Stencil podcast right here. Podcast number 3 and get my views or my listens up higher than his. But anyway, link to a website that you can, this one we just use an example to show our YouTube channel, but you could put the link to the landing page. You could put a link to your marketing site or maybe some manufacturer sites. We have here's a link to the company cam app, so you can have that directly inside of Leap, so reps wouldn't have to open up a separate browser or anything to stay within Leap. One of the key things that I talked about was bringing in those measurements. So the app, we have a direct integration with EagleView and Hover, and when you link the measurements, it not only populates a price, but it will auto-populate into your resources section a brochure, a PDF, their measurement PDF that they generate with the customer's actual home. So I'll be able to say, okay, Mr. Jones, this is how we come up with your measurements. It took some pictures, blah, 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 blah. And, a third party is going to return back to us all of the measurements on your house. This is what they came up with, blah, 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 blah. And this is how they came up with it. So as I scroll through this, you'll see that, if you're not familiar with Hover, you can get specific measurements, down to the inch of how big, every little facet, nook and cranny of the house is. Just imagine, you have a sales rep that goes in and he's pulling a tape measure. I've even ran behind contractors where I asked the homeowner how they came up with the measurements, and the homeowner told me that the guy just walked it off with his feet and said, hey, that roof is going to cost X dollars, which I don't doubt that a guy could figure it out. I know enough experience. I've ran enough roof leads that I can almost look at the roof and know a ballpark of where it's going to be. However, if I present it to the customer that that's the way I came up with that price, it's just there's no credibility whatsoever there. So just this little thing, even if you feel, hey, I can figure up all these measurements on my own, I don't need the software, I can save the money, the 30, the 50, whatever it costs to do this. It isn't about saving the time. It is about saving the time. Obviously, that is a benefit. But the point I'm making with this is the price, the value that you're going to get by using this as part of your sales presentation, as opposed to only using it as part of your production. Is worth way more than what it costs to get these measurement reports, whether you sell the deal or not, obviously, right? So you just do the math. You're going to need, say your closing percentage is 30%. You need to buy 3 reports for every one of those and just build that into the cost of your lead. But the value that you're going to get, a lot of the companies who are using Lead, who are utilizing this, are benefiting greatly because they see past what it costs for these measurement reports and see how much more value it brings with the closing percentage, the increase in dollars per ticket, the increase in referrals from previous customers, etc. So that covers the presentation part. Now what I want to do is go in and just talk about generating a proposal. So in this, I'm just run through this one quickly because a lot of what I'm about to show you is also included on the contract section. So just for time's sake, I'm going to show you a quick one for a cover page, and we'll just include this little price breakdown sheet. So what I've done on my cover page is I found that if you create a little bit of ownership, I mean, this is nothing that I made up. This is just in sales in general. If you create ownership with the homeowner on, like they feel it is theirs already as part of the selling process, then you have a much higher chance of closing the deal. An example of this is, when you go to buy a new car, they always want you to test drive the car because that gives you the sense of ownership. You get behind the wheel, you're driving it, it feels like it is yours. You're like, yes, I can see myself driving this car. When you go into the Apple store, the reason, they have all the devices out there is so that you can interact with them and you can play with them in the apps, and click it and click the keyboard, etc., move the mouse, because you get a sense of ownership. Home improvement is very hard to do that because you don't have, you're selling something that don't exist. You have to build it or install it. So all these little things that we're showing here help create this sense of ownership. One of them was when I present the price to the homeowner, I wanted to have a picture of their house or what we are installing. If we're installing a deck, I want to take a picture, maybe their existing deck or where the deck is going to go, just the front of their house. So I have created a cover page in my proposal section. So when I click onto this, I can bring in a photo. We'll just use this one right here. And I can zoom in and you can move this photo around. You can draw on it if you want, but just for this webinar, I'm just going to position it nice and centered there of the customer's house and hit done. Then I'm going to go to my price breakdown sheet that I have set up to auto link from the estimate. So based on everything that I priced on the estimate, this thing will just auto populate for me. And I'm going to go into, include a 10% discount and hit next. And I have this set up to generate a very nice professional document. Obviously, you would customize this with your company logos and any other colors and stuff that you want on your fonts and etc. But you see, it auto-populated the photo, obviously, that I put in the beginning. It put, the customer's information is all auto-populated for me there, so I don't have to type that in. And then when I swipe through here, in this example, I have a 1-year price. I created a template that just takes all of the windows. I put 4 of them in. And prices them up for me. I say, Mr. Jones, this is your 1-year price. We have a 10% discount. It brings your total to $34.51. We have 3 payment options. It's the way I used to do in-home sales. Obviously, every company's going to do it their own way. And if you would like advice or what best practices are, we have an entire team that helps you set this thing up, to get it to the way that you like it. So this was a payment option that I did. No money down, no interest for 12 months. It's $49 a month. I would say, Mr. and Ms. Jones, here's our second payment option. This is the low interest rate. Give you 5 years to pay it off. It's $73. And if you just wanted to pay cash, you'd pay a third, a third, a third. But you see, obviously I could just send them just this part, but just by putting the picture of their home in the front, when the customer gets there, it's like, oh yes, that's our house, much more professional. If I do this and send it to the homeowner, and another guy, however he presents the price, but maybe it's handwritten, maybe it's delivered in their mailbox, whatever it is, maybe it's just a plain email. These are just little nuances that I could do as a sales rep to make the customer want to buy from me more so than the other person. So that's a proposal. And the last thing I wanted to show you is a contract. I'm going to do this one a little bit more elaborate. So I'm going to select roofing. I'm going to select door. I'm going to select windows, and I'm going to select payment details. So, and this is literally how I would sell the things. I mean, this demo account is mocked loosely off of what I used to use when I did in-home sales. So obviously your templates would be whatever templates that you use in your business. So when I click next, I'm going to go through and fill a lot of this out. I'm not going to speak too much on all the features and beautiful stuff that you can do in this template, because the theme of this webinar is just visualization. So one of the things that I'm going to make a visual in this app is I want to draw an aerial view of the customer's house. Maybe this is the floor plan. Maybe you're selling basement waterproofing and you or a bathroom, and you just want to draw the floor plan and where things are going to be located. In this example, I want to draw where the downspouts are going to be located on a roof and gutter job that I'm going to install. So I come to this section of the app, I turn my grid on. You can adjust the size of the grid. And I can come in here and I can say, okay, let's want to draw just this little outline of a roof. Maybe it has an attached garage, so we're going to put this on the side. So crooked line, so still like this. There you go. Let me draw the line across the middle. And then maybe you want to put, so let's just change this to, I don't know, red. And we'll put X's on the corners of the house where we want to install downspouts. And then we can do downspout. So X equals downspout. Now, the other thing I want to show you is, remember how we talked about like the color swatches and stuff that go on the actual contract. Now, this can be maybe you sell bathrooms and you want to have a picture of the faucet that the customer, is having installed, or the shower head, and it has actual finish and the style of the faucet. Maybe you're selling siding and you want to have a picture of the actual siding, the Dutch lap or clapboard or whatever you're selling, in the color of it. Roofing, same thing. Obviously you can do that, but I'm going to show you even a more advanced one. We have a direct integration with a company called Provia, and they have their own tool that allows you to build their doors and windows in either their website or their app. So we can connect directly to that system and pull in the entire order direct from their quoting system. So now I not only have the color of the door and the handle and the glass, etc. I have an actual picture of what everything is going to look like together. Back in the day when I used to sell doors out of a catalog, that's all we had, is a brochure that had all the glass packages and the styles of doors and handles, etc. And the customer would have to pick all the things a la carte that they wanted on that door. I would have to compile all that, obviously, into a price, but most importantly, write it all down on a contract, and hope that I got all of the information that was needed in order to order that door. The customer had no idea what the door was actually going to look like until it was installed. So this was a way, this was game changing for doors and windows, specifically with Provia, because now I can have the actual door and window printed on their documents, whether it's a proposal or a contract, that the customer knows exactly what it's going to look like. And then the other thing is and this is another example, is windows. Windows, there's a bunch of different styles and sizes and options and grid patterns. If you want the customer to be able to see what the actual thumbnail, in this example, it's the style of the window, I have what little thumbnails on every single window so that they know what we are installing. This was common, like a lot of times you're replacing 3 windows to be either like a 3-part slider, or maybe you're putting a bow window in, you're changing double hungs to 2-part sliders or vice versa. This was a way that you could put the little thumbnail on there and the customer would know, exactly what type of window is going in which location. And then the last one is, this one's kind of redundant because it's really not for visual, but I'll show it to you anyway, just because it completes the process, and that's just the payment details. We have a way that you can capture payment information directly from the customer. I guess this is kind of a visual. For the homeowners, more a peace of mind. Like if you just think about if the customer wanted to pay with a credit card right now, what does that process look like in your organization? And if any part of it requires you writing the customer's number down or you calling it in over the phone, then you're opening yourself up to risk of a thing called PCI compliance, which, although not a legality thing, it can result in lawsuits, et cetera. I don't want to scare you into all that, but we have a way that you can capture, let's say like John Doe, customers' payment information securely. Just real quick, how this thing works under the hood is I'm putting all this customer's card information in. When I hit this done button, it's sent a direct connection to a third party that uses what's called tokenization. So they are PCI level 1 compliance, equivalent to a bank. We send them all the card information directly from the iPad. It never touches our servers. They store it all in their servers, encrypted, and return to us a token with the last 4 digits of the card number. We print the last 4 digits of the card number on the document and store that with the customer record in our back end, and then give you a way to run transactions using the token, so that even the business owner, the sales manager, nobody at the company is going to know what the customer's card information is. So it maintains, a very high level of security. So what you're seeing now is a document that is generated from Leap. And as you can see, the visual part of this, everything's laid out nice and clean. One of the other things with Leap is it has an algorithm in it that generates the PDF document dynamically. And what that means is, unlike other software that requires you to start with a PDF, which means that you cannot remove or add anything to that PDF, like a line item, a paragraph, a disclosure, another field that you want your rep to fill out. You can't add and remove things off of a static PDF. Since Leap uses an algorithm to generate the PDF from scratch, it can add and remove things off of the document as it's drawing it. So what does that mean for the sales rep and the homeowner? When I'm going over the contract with the homeowner, only the information that is relevant to the project is printed on the document. So I don't have to explain away things that are irrelevant to the project. I don't have to explain away, permits that we're not getting. I don't have to have the customer initial in places that are just irrelevant because they're not getting them. I remember I had a one-size-fits-all contract that accounted for siding and gutters. But if I sold a job that was only gutters, I had to use the siding and gutter contract. In the entire siding section, I had to mark off as NA, not included, scratch it out, And so I was going over a document that 75% of the content on it was irrelevant to the homeowner's project. So Leap allows you to make your documents tailored specifically to the project that the sales rep is selling, right? So as I'm scrolling through this, you see here's my nice little sketch of where the downspouts are going. I have a spot here for the customer to initial. Here's my, my not just color swatch, but the actual doors that the customer is ordering, printed on their document in full color, listed, right next to alongside their every specific detail. So I mean, ordering this door is really zero data entry. I can just go into this ordering system, type in the quote numbers right there underneath the quantity, and pick up right where the sales rep and the homeowner left off. My windows, and again, just in this example, it's windows, but imagine if this was, I don't know, a bathroom, and this line item, instead of being a window, the first line item, that was the actual faucet that was being installed on the sink. And then you had another one was the shower head, or the shower mech and whatever, shower faucet and shower head. You could have a line item for every one of those things, the little color swatch. The sales rep could pick the color swatch, and it makes things so much easier when you're doing it this way. Here's all of my payment details, and you just tap the screen, hit sign, and send this thing off. So with that, I think I covered everything in my slide. Kelly, if you're still on here.
Yep, I'm here. I think we just had one more finishing. Let me just.
One more slide. Yeah. So I want to.
Yeah.
Let me. Sorry. So I.
Hey, you're good.
Yep. One of the things I wanted to, the potential reason that we put this slide in here is just to talk about like this whole webinar was geared about, the how you look in front of your customer. And I wanted to bring up these logos like Coca-Cola, Apple, because there was actually a YouTube video that I watched recently that was about brand, and it was basically kind of like a little quiz that they did, and it was they would show you colors. All it was just the whole screen was a color, and you knew how to guess which brand that was. And so like one of them was like to put up a big pink color, and it was the guesses were it was a specific color of pink, and I think it was T-Mobile, right? So T-Mobile was pink, and then I think like brown, they put up this specific shade of brown, and obviously that was UPS. And they had all these different. I think there was like a FedEx one, and you could guess the colors of FedEx. And the point kind of the thing was the consistency from start to finish within an organization of what their brand is like. So if in home improvements, when the sales rep is sitting across the kitchen table from Mr. and Mrs. Jones, it doesn't matter if you are a one-man operation and you are the owner operator that is doing everything, the selling, the ordering, the installing, everything, or you are a Fortune 500 company and the biggest home improvement company in the world. From the homeowner's perspective, it is just one person sitting across the kitchen table from them. So however they represent your company is how the customer is going to perceive your company. So when you are presenting things, if you're just putting things in a mailbox and the customer's perception is, okay, well, hey, he cut some corners, he didn't take the extra time to make that much more professional. And maybe they don't know any better. So, obviously people sell deals like that by just handwriting something, leaving it in the mailbox, sliding it under the door, whatever it is. I'm not saying you will never sell a deal by doing that. What I am saying though is if another guy comes behind him or maybe before him and he does all the things and it's much more professional and he's much more buttoned up, from the homeowner's perception, it doesn't matter how big or small or the warranties, any of that. The homeowner's perception of that company is, hey, they are buttoned up, they are much more detailed, and I feel a lot more comfortable going with them, and I'm willing to pay a higher price to go with them than I'm willing to go with someone else. And just keeping that consistency across your organization, starting from the beginning when you first meet with that company, company, I think is key. So with that, now I transfer it to over to you, Kelly.
Absolutely. Thanks, Steve. That was a lot of great information. I think we've got a couple of questions rolling in. But for anyone who is interested in checking out that Steve's podcast, I stuck a link to that in the chat, so you can grab that there. So now we're going to jump into our. Sorry, what was that, Steve?
I was just saying, get my views up, my listens up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Shameless plug, yes. All right, so now we're going to head into the Q&A section. So if you've got any questions that are popping to mind, feel free and submit those in that questions panel there. But before we jump into that, as many folks are aware, October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So LEAP is joining in the efforts to fight against this disease by donating to the Susan G. Komen Fund this month. And one way that we're doing that is by making a donation for every company that has a conversation with LEAP during the month of October. I'm going to go ahead and launch this poll here. So we'd love to tell you a little bit more about how we can work with your business, see if we're a good fit. And I hope you'll say yes to a conversation. It'll do some social good. We'll get some information, do some good, all in one conversation. So in return for that couple minutes of time, we'll make a $50 donation to that Susan G. Komen fund in your name. So if you could just select off an option there, and we'll have a LEAP representative reach out to schedule a conversation if you're interested in moving forward with that. All right. So with that, we'll go ahead and move into our Q&A section here. So first question has popped in. So this is coming in from Jan. We sell windows and doors, but we don't always use Provia. Can you have pictures in your estimates that are from other manufacturers?
Yeah, so if the manufacturer has a tool, obviously we can't generate the picture for you, right? So if the manufacturer has a tool that you can generate the actual picture, a lot of times those tools will have an export button where you can export it to a photo. Worst case scenario, you just take a screenshot of it. I've seen this done a lot with not just door software, but also I've seen bathroom design software where they'll take a screenshot on the iPad and then it just saves it to the camera roll. And then in Leap, you can then just bring that photo in, just like I showed you that cover page where I brought the customer a photo of a house and put it on that first page. So you just bring in the photo of the door or window or whatever it is that you're selling, and just bring this screenshot in as a photo from that third-party software.
Perfect. All right. Hope that answers your question, Jan. Another question coming in from Paul. Can you, using the secure payment capture feature that you showed there, can you schedule out payments in the future? So if you had someone who wanted to put a deposit down today, but then, pay, another third or whatever it is down the line?
Yeah, so when you capture it like I did there, you have two options. You can either capture it right then and there, or you can send the customer a request to capture later. So like that's very good if a customer calls you up or sends you an email or whatever and say, okay, we're ready to pull the trigger, and you want to email them a contract. You could email them to capture their payment later. However you capture it, whether it's now or later, we will store that payment method so that you can run multiple transactions against it. And it's not just credit cards. You can do the same thing with checks. So no more sales reps driving checks back to the office. No more chasing the customer down for completion checks. If the customer wants to pay with a check, we can capture that bank account information the same way that we do a credit card, and then run ACH transactions. So our back end allows you to just go in, find the customer that you need to run a charge for, and then click on the credit card that was captured initially, and then run another transaction. And you run as many as you want. If the customer decides that they need to pay with a different credit card later on down the road that you haven't captured already, that's when the capture later comes in handy again. So you could send a link out to the customer via email. Customer will click that link, put in their bank account or credit card information. You will get a notification letting you know that it was done, or included in the request, you could have a payment amount as well. So let's say the customer owes $3,000. I can send them a $3,000 payment request that will not only capture their payment method, but automatically charge them the $3,000 and send you an email letting you know that it's done.
Perfect. And a follow-up question on that. Does that also work with QuickBooks?
Yes. QuickBooks Merchant Services, I think, it's through Intuit. You can plug it into that.
Perfect. Okay, great.
Matter of fact,
Then we have another question.
Let me elaborate on that real quick. So our credit card processing plugs into, I think it's 94, it might be a little bit more than that. It's at least 94 different credit card processors. So if you wanted to use that service, you don't have to switch to Leap's payment processing. You can keep your existing payment processing that you have, most likely, as long as it's one of those 94 gateways. And your existing rates, none of that would change. You just plug in what you already have into our system.
Perfect. Okay, great. Hope that answers the question, Paul. All right, we've got another question coming in from Melissa. Can you give some examples of how you can use this kind of app in today's environment with COVID? I think it's along the lines of like the virtual selling, if you're going to be not in front of the customer, how you can use this application.
That's a great question. So obviously, when COVID hit back in March, there was so much uncertainty. And one of the things with Leap, we actually used to say this as when we were doing sales, like when we first started Leap, and I was doing the sales calls, and I was demoing this over a webinar just like we're using now. And I would say, imagine if someone waved the magic wand and said, hey, you have to be digital, because like, again, I said it in our webinar, like our industry is very slow to adopt technology. And again, there's tons of reason. I think part of it is because there's no one system, right? And if you wanted to go 100% digital in the home improvement industry, you need a bunch of different pieces of software to do it. Leap is one of the first ones. It's like the hub that ties everything together. So I said, hey, look, eventually, if you fast forward, I don't know a timeline, but if I'm looking into a crystal ball, at some point, our industry is going to be digital, right? Nobody would ever thought, like, I don't know, Sears was mail order catalog. I was reading an article about how Sears should have been Amazon because they were the first ones to pioneer mail ordering, and then just got left in the dust, right? So the home improvements eventually will adopt online just technology stuff. And I said, imagine if someone waved a magic wand and everything was digital, right? You had to sell your stuff over the internet. Companies who are using software like Leap are going to adopt a hell of a lot faster than companies are doing it the old-fashioned way. And the companies doing the old-fashioned way, they're doing nothing technology. So if they had to go to an online environment, they can't. It's going to take them forever to spend something up. So, I'm not saying, hey, switch. I am kind of saying switch everything over to an online environment. You could have a backup plan as, the old-fashioned way, but eventually everything is going to be digital, right? Uh, and then literally COVID made that they waved the magic wand and said, hey, now you have to go digital. Everything is digital. And we have a customer testimonial somewhere. I think it's on the YouTube channel about, or it might be on our website, about a guy who says, hey, if it wasn't for Leap, we would have sold 0 deals. We would have probably went out of business when COVID hit, because it allowed us to literally just pivot and doing a screen share, just like I was doing on this webinar. Companies today are doing it. They have virtual appointments or an in-person appointment now. And if the customer signs up for a virtual appointment, that's one where, both parties don't have to be home at that point. One can do it from their phone, one can do it from work, whatever, do it from home. It just opens up a whole lot of other possibilities that you don't have unless you're doing something digital. So Leap can absolutely help you, because this webinar, we just did it. We were basically, pitching Leap and all the benefits of it virtually. There's no reason that you can't do that. You can send your contracts, you can show all the brochures, you can do all of that, which is the screen share on your iPad without ever going to the customer's house. And then measurement tools, right? You could use that. You can measure the house remotely, or even just drive by if you have to measure it, and then schedule a virtual appointment with the homeowner when they have time. So yeah, it will absolutely. I mean, we have concrete, customer testimonials about how Leap was able to save their business because they were able to sell deals remotely when nobody else could.
Fantastic. All right. We've got another question here from Dan. How many sketches or photos can you use in a template? Is there a limit on the number of things you can put in, or is it just kind of a free-for-all, add as many as you like?
Yeah, so if you were to do a demo with one of our reps, we could show you. So the short answer is you can really have as many as you want. And we have companies that have done this where they'll put, the way that you build our forms are just a bunch of little cell types that you drag in. So you drag in a couple of different photo cell types. You can make them required, right? So we have let's say you're selling siding and you want a picture of each side of the house. So you drag in 4 photo cells, and you say, hey, I want a photo for the front of the house, the left of the house, right of the house, and back of the house. So you for them. Or you can have 4 sketch pads. So, you can have, maybe you're doing 2 bathrooms, an upstairs and a downstairs, and you want to have a sketch on what each bathroom is going to look like. So the short answer is you can have as many as you want. I don't know if there's an exact scenario that they're looking for there, but I would encourage you just to reach out to our either sales team or support team, depending on if you're a customer or not, and we would direct you from there.
Perfect. All right. Looks like we have one more question here from Terry. Terry's asking, how can you get all of your information into the Leap app, like as far as appointments? Can you connect with CRMs to pull in that information?
Yeah, so we integrate directly, I think, with 5 or 6. So see if I can remember off the top of my head: Market Sharp, Lead Perfection, Salesforce, Improver 360, Job Nimbus. I think it's 5. We actually, I'm not going to announce them on this webinar, but we have another one coming very soon. So yes, we can integrate with them, and it will just pull your appointment information in, and then it also sends all your stuff back out. So if you create any documents, those documents are uploaded back to the CRM, and I believe every one of them allow you to result the appointment as well, so you can disposition the lead once you're complete with it. If any of those CRMs don't work, we integrate directly with the calendar in the iPad. So if you can somehow get your CRM to push to a calendar, you sync that calendar in your iPad, and then Leap can pull the appointments directly from that calendar. You do not get the two-way connection though, so you're not going to have the information sent back out, but we do have a solution that I'm not going to announce on this webinar coming for that as well, which is probably an integration that I'm the most excited about of anything that we've ever launched.
That's awesome. Great, Steve. All right, I think that's all the questions we've got for today. If anyone thinks of any additional questions or things you'd like to learn about or know about, you can feel free to reach out to this marketing@leapdigital.com email address after this webinar. That will go straight to me, so I'd be happy to answer any questions or send you any information after this call as well. I will also be sending out a copy of the recording. So if you'd like to share this with anyone or review some information that we shared, that will be coming to your inbox after this webinar. So with that, I think we'll go ahead and wrap up for the day. Steve, do you have any closing words or anything before we finish up?
Nope, just listen to my podcast. That's it.
There you go. Perfect. All right. Well, thanks, Steve, for your time today. Thanks, everyone, for joining us on the webinar. As you close out of the webinar today, you'll see a short survey pop up. We'd love to get your feedback on today's presentation and hear about any topics that you might be interested in for future webinars. Always interested in hearing what would be of interest to you. So we'd appreciate it if you could take a moment and answer that as you log off today. So with that, thanks again, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.